Hare Krishna. Thank you, Pawan Prabhuji, Meenakshi Mohini, Vishwanath Prabhu for facilitating chanting. Let's continue with our prayers. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Samannate Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Anybody would like to try singing our prayer of the week today from Prarthana? No? Okay, so we'll continue then. I'll sing and then we'll read the translations. Shri Rupa Manjari Pada Sei Mora Sampada Shri Rupa Manjari Pada Sei Mora Sampada Sei Mora Bhajana Pujan Sei Mora Bhajana Pujan Sei Mora Pranadhana Sei Mora Bharana Sei Mora Pranadhana Sei Mora Bharana Sei Mora Jiva Nirjivan Sei Mora Jiva Nirjivan Sei Mora Rasa Nidhi Sei Mora Vancha Siddhi Sei Mora Rasa Nidhi Sei Mora Vancha Siddhi Sei Mora Videra Dharam Sei Mora Videra Dharam Sei Brata Sei Tapa Sei Mora Mantra Japa Sei Brata Sei Tapa Sei Mora Mantra Japa Sei Mora Dharama Karam Sei Mora Dharama Karam अनुकूल हबे विधि से पदे होइबे सिद्धि अनुकूल हबे विधि से पदे होइबे सिद्धि निरखिब ए दुई नयने निरखिब ए दुई नयने से रूप माधुरी राशि प्राणकुवलय शशि से रूप माधुरी राशि प्राणकुवलय शशि प्रफुल्लित हबे निशिदिने प्रफुल्लित हबे निशिदिने तुवा दर्शन ही गरले जारलो देही तुवा दर्शन आही गरले जारलो देही चिरदिन तापित जीवन तीर तापित जीवन हा हा प्रभु करो दया, देहो मोरे पद छाया। हा हा रूप करो दया, देहो मोरे पद छाया। नरोत्तम लोई लो शरण, नरोत्तम लोई लो शरण। श्री रूप मंजरी पद से मोरा संपद, से मोरा भजन पूजन, से मोरा भजन पूजन। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम हरे राम, राम राम हरे हरे। श्री लाल समय प्रार्थना की जय, श्री नरोत्तम दास ठाकुर की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। Hey, anybody who would like to read the translation?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, Aarti Mataji. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. The lotus feet of Sri Rupa Manjari are my treasure, my devotional service, and my object of worship. They give my life meaning, and they are the life of my life. They are the perfection of rasa, and they are perfection worthy of attainment. They are the very law of the Vedic scriptures for me. They are the meaning of all my fasts and penances and my silent uttering of my mantra. They are the basis of religion and activities. By the purifying process of favorable devotional service, one will attain perfection and with these two eyes be able to see. His transcendental form is shining like moonlight in my heart, and my heart therefore shines and reciprocates. In other words, the ordinary moon lights the ordinary moon lights up in the night, and its shine illuminates other objects. But the moon of the effulgence of the form of Sri Rupa Manjari shines into the heart and makes the heart also shine back to the spiritual sky. This moon shines not only in the night time but day and night. Your absence from my vision is like a dose of strong poison, and I will suffer till the end of my life. Narottam Das Thakur says, please give me your mercy and the shade of your lotus feet. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So, as Narottam Das Thakur is praying to Shri Rupa Manjari to give me your mercy in the shade of your lotus feet. Similarly, in Prabhupada Lilamrita we saw yesterday, like whoever serves a pure devotee like that, then the doors of liberation are open for them. What to speak of just liberation, which is mukti. But devotees don't want even mukti. They are not after bhukti, which is material sense gratification, material enjoyment. They are not after mukti, which is liberation. They are not after siddhis, which are siddhis are powers, mystical powers that you may get. But they are only after the ultimate reward, which is bhakti. Bhakti at the lotus feet of the Lord, which is selfless, which is the purest of the pure, and which is the most transcendently sweet. So let's continue through Padilamrit in the same mood. So yesterday we completed chapter 42, which was developing Mayapur, but Prabhupada we saw yesterday finally was able to sign the papers, conveyance and deed for purchasing the land in Mumbai, which is he calls it the gateway of India. Similarly, when he came to US, he landed in Boston, like that was the gateway to the US for Srila Prabhupada. So, and from Boston to kind of New York he went. So here it's Boston to New Delhi. Gateway of India is Bombay, and New Delhi is the capital. But yeah, Bombay, yesterday Prabhupada signed the papers, so we got the Bombay land, and now he's also already able to envision from his mind how the temple would manifest, how Shri Radha Ras Vihari's temple will shine, made up of all marble. So while others are just wondering what Prabhupada is speaking, he from his mind's eye he can see the temple is already there. Just the time is separating. So like that, he always had a grand vision, and he could already see from the core of his heart what would be manifesting in the future. Okay, so all those are wonderful qualities of sadhu that we saw yesterday. Tatikshapa Karunikaha. Suhrida Sarvadehi Nam. He's very friendly to everybody, he's tolerant, he's merciful, he doesn't have any enemies, and he's peaceful, he's always surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord. So these are the ornaments of a sadhu. Okay, we'll continue chapter 43, beginning the temple of Krishna Balaram. So yeah, looks like this is not chronological because we are in 1973 in the last chapter, but now we are going back to 1972. April 1972. Srila Prabhupada was meditating on constructing his Krishna Balaram Mandir. In April of 1972, he asked his disciple Surabhi, who had drawn the plans for the Bombay Center, to execute drawings basing the design on Indian Renaissance architecture. Prabhupada liked the Govindaji temple, located near the original Govindaji temple constructed by Srila Rupa Goswami. He liked its open courtyard, surrounded by many arches, and its front steps leading up to the deity Darshana area. He suggested that some features of the temple be incorporated into his temple. With the assistance Surabhi, with the assistance of a Vrindavan architect, executed the plans and Prabhupada approved. This will be the grandest temple in Vrindavan. Many high-class gentlemen in Delhi who are also devotees will relish the chance to live with us on weekends, and it will be for them just like Vaikuntha. You must construct something wonderful. Otherwise, it will be a discredit to you American boys. That will absolve the position of America and India. And this Vrindavan project is one of the most important of ours in ISKCON. Although Guru Das had been careful to keep in touch with Prabhupada by mail, he had neglected certain important matters in Vrindavan, such as digging a well and getting city approval, things Prabhupada had repeatedly asked for. In summer of 1972, Prabhupada wrote, "From the beginning, I said I simply wanted a temple built in Vrindavan just like Govindaji's temple, and there have been so many letters, but that has not been done. Never mind, now I like that plan of Surabhi's." 2 weeks later, Prabhupada again wrote Gurudas on the same point. "I wanted a temple like Govindaji. Is it so difficult that for the last 6 months you have consulted so many engineers? Any ordinary engineer could draw up the papers and get it passed. There has been so much unnecessary correspondence. To build a temple in Vrindavan should not be so difficult," Prabhupada thought, and he became impatient with the delays. Concerned that the devotees and architects not make the building too costly, he said that they should go ahead with the plans he had approved, even if the building were to be a little cheaper than in the original plan. He was concerned that a competent disciple oversee the work so that ISKCON didn't get cheated. As early as April of 1972, Prabhupada had asked that the deities in Vrindavan be Krishna and Balaram. Krishna may be black, Balaram of white, and the pose in the back of the Back to Godhead magazine is very nice. He asked that a sign be put out front announcing Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir. One reason Prabhupada chose Krishna and Balaram as the presiding deities was that most of the Vrindavan temples were of Radha and Krishna. ISKCON's temple would be unique in Vrindavan. Another reason was that the ISKCON land was located in Ramanareti, an area of forest and soft sands where Krishna and Balaram had enjoyed their childhood pastimes 5,000 years ago. To celebrate and worship the youthful sports of Krishna and Balaram in Ramanareti was fitting. Although thousands of years had passed since Krishna's advent in Vrindavan, the same atmosphere and many of the same sights and sounds still prevailed. Peacocks ran across the sands or sat on rooftops or in trees. The cooing and chirping of pigeons and cuckoos and the sweep of the parrot's green wings were eternal sounds and sights of the Vrindavan forest. In Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada had described how Krishna and Balaram and their cowherd friends played in Ramanreti and similar places. "My dear friends, just see how this river bank is extremely beautiful because of its pleasing atmosphere, and just see how the blooming lotuses are attracting bees and birds by their aroma. The humming and chirping of the bees in the forest is echoing throughout the beautiful trees in the forest. Also, here the sands are clean and soft. Therefore, this must be considered the best place for our sporting and pastimes. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, the playing of the cowherd boys with Krishna and Balaram as friends in Vrindavan is the highest spiritual realization, far beyond the ordinary religionist's understanding of God. The supreme truth, whom some meditated upon as impersonal Brahman, others worshipped as the supreme Almighty, and still others considered an ordinary living entity, was the eternal, loving friend of the cowherd boys of Vrindavan. Only after many, many lifetimes of pious activities had they become eligible to join in the loving pastimes of Krishna and Balaram in Ramanreti. In establishing a temple of Krishna and Balaram, Prabhupada wanted to offer the peaceful, transcendental atmosphere of Ramanreti to all people, including visitors from abroad, commuters from Delhi, and his own disciples. Already, he had received a letter from a major international travel agency requesting that he provide accommodations for tourists so that the ISKCON guest house could be included in official tours of spiritual India. People were always coming to India to tour the holy places. Unfortunately, most of the places were unauthorized or overrun by cheaters. ISKCON center, therefore, would be very important, Prabhupada wrote. Have a European preaching center and try to enlist all the tourists and hippies who come to Vrindavan. Give them nice prasadam and engage them in chanting, cleaning the temple, and reading our books. Give them all facility for becoming devotees. There was another particular significance in Prabhupada's choosing Krishna and Balaram as the central object of worship in Vrindavan temple. Lord Balaram is the first expansion from Lord Krishna, and in his incarnation of Sankarshana, he upholds all the universes. The Vaishnavas therefore worship Balaramji for spiritual strength. You can pray to Lord Balaram, Prabhupada said, to help you in your deficiency. As the source of spiritual strength, Lord Balaram is also known as the original spiritual master. As in Prabhupada's other large ISKCON temples, there would be three altars, and beside Krishna and Balaram would stand the deities of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, and Lord Nityananda is Lord Balaram, a fact the Krishna Balaram Mandir would proclaim to the world. Lord Nityananda is especially referred to as the Kripa Avatar, the form of God most merciful to the fallen conditioned souls. Thus, the worship of Krishna and Balaram as Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda would emphasize distributing Krishna consciousness to others. Prabhupada also wanted to install deities of Radha Shyam Sundar along with their two attendant gopis, Lalita and Vishakha. Srila Prabhupada could not possibly stay full time in Vrindavan, and yet, whenever he was away, progress showed. Gurudas, the temple president, had little money and little expertise in managing finances. Sorry, the progress had slowed. Okay. Prabhupada called him Damn Cheap Babu, a name given by Indians to Westerners who think they have won a damn cheap bargain, although they are actually being cheated. Since Prabhupada did not trust his devotees' spending habits, he arranged for a complicated system whereby he would have to approve all ISKCON Vrindavan checks, even while traveling. When Gurudas wanted to spend Tejas, the Delhi temple president would come to Vrindavan and approve the expenses. Then a check would be made out and mailed to Srila Prabhupada for his signature. When the check returned to Delhi, Tejas would add his own signature and give the check to Gurudas. Although Prabhupada generally preferred not to burden himself with managing his temples, he insisted on supervising all spending in Vrindavan down to the last rupee. But even with such controls, Gurudas would misspend money, taking funds earmarked for construction and using them for other temple purposes, usually getting cheated by the merchants. After Prabhupada's 1972 visit during Kartik, he was away from Vrindavan for an entire year, directing things through correspondence. With the Krishna consciousness movement growing quickly on all continents, he had many places to visit. Still, his three main projects, Bombay, Vrindavan, and Mayapur, were his major subjects of correspondence and his greatest financial investments. One reason he did not come more often to Vrindavan was that Gurudas' letters had been very optimistic, promising a temple opening by Janmashtami of 1973. Surabhi was in charge of the construction and knew well that the work was going too slowly, yet Gurudas would write to Prabhupada, painting a picture of imminent completion of the construction and opening of the mandir. Prabhupada was enlivened to hear the good news and he held Gurudas to his promise, though with reservations. If you can finish the work by Janmashtami next, that would be a very great credit for you, and I shall come from any part of the world just to install the deity. But now you must work very, very hard to make good your promise to me, otherwise I shall be very disappointed and become very, very angry upon you. Prabhupada warned the devotees in Vrindavan that they would have to work diligently, finishing before the monsoon season arrived in June if they were actually to fulfill their promise. But anyone visiting the construction site in Vrindavan could understand that the building would never be finished in time. The temple area consisted of foundation lines and steel rods. Only 3 or 4 devotees were living there, struggling to organize laborers and to obtain funds and building materials. That summer was extremely hot, and each day the devotees were forced to spend the afternoon lying down in their huts, exhausted from the heat. Prices for cement and steel had doubled, yet Prabhupada continued to respond to Guru Das's glowing reports, encouraging him to continue with determination. But Prabhupada could also read between the lines, and he cautioned Gurudas, I simply want to see that the work is being carried on vigorously, and the money shall not be used to pay bad bills. The money should simply be used for construction. Talk of a temple opening by Janmashtami gradually disappeared. But Prabhupada did not express his disappointment. Rather, he continued to encourage and push the devotees onward, asking that at least his own rooms be completed, so that when he visited in October of 1973, he would have a place to stay. When Prabhupada arrived, however, his quarters were far from completion, and he had to live for a week in the home of a Vrindavan friend. He did not remove Gurudas, but he tried to teach him better management and accounting. He also wrote to his India GBC secretary, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, to get more funds for the Vrindavan project. So I have arrived here in Vrindavan, but so far the project is concerned why the money is so irregular. Tejias reports that in the past 3 months you have sent rupees 5,000 and since then nothing. How will the project go on? Inspired by Prabhupada's presence, the devotees rallied. They held a little festival on the land, erecting a tent and decorating the foundation posts with banana trees and flowers. For several evenings, Prabhupada lectured before a crowd of about 50 local people sitting on folding chairs and between the foundation lines. Prabhupada was determined in his desire. He wanted a temple as much as ever, and the small band of disciples in Vrindavan were convinced of their mission to erect that temple. They knew they were building a temple not merely as their own local project, but as something very important for the whole world. Prabhupada said the next Janmashtami, August 1974, as the new grand opening. Surabhi had considerable architectural and construction experience, but he had never worked with such an ornate building before. He doubted, therefore, whether they could finish in a year's time. Tejas wondered whether they could raise the funds in time. Gurudas was becoming more competent, and he assured Prabhupada that they would meet the deadline. Subala had wanted to stay in Vrindavan, but only on the condition that he be relieved of management, free to chant and wander in the groves. But he had long since departed for the west. Those devotees who remained committed to Vrindavan knew that at least for the present, the real spiritual path in Vrindavan was one of the hard labor, anxiety, combating the elements, and working as pure instruments in the service of Krishna's pure devotee. In February of 1974, as Prabhupada was traveling eastward from Los Angeles, he wrote Guru Das that he would like to come to Vrindavan as soon as his residential rooms were completed, and he asked when that would be. Guru Das consulted Surabhi, who said 1 month. Trying to be more positive, Guru Das invited Prabhupada to come and move into his new quarters in 3 weeks. But Srila Prabhupada telegrammed back that he would be coming in 2. At that time, Prabhupada's house had no roof or floor and only portions of the outer walls. Surabhi began a marathon construction effort and hired 2 work crews, one for day and one for night. 2 weeks non-stop they worked, drastically cutting corners. They plastered and painted simultaneously, and as a result, the walls remained wet. A few days before Prabhupada's arrival, they put down a temporary floor, bricks covered with cow dung, covered with rugs, covered with sheets. The weather was cold and the house had no heating. The morning Prabhupada arrived, the devotees all gathered with him as he sat happily before his desk, praising their achievement. He said if they could keep working like this, they could finish everything before Janmashtami. Almost immediately upon his arrival, Prabhupada began to manifest the symptoms of a cold, but he would not hear of moving to another place. This is my first house, he said. Now I am going to stay here. The large brick and stone room was simple and austere and remained dark during most of the day. But Prabhupada considered it his Vrindavan residence. Soon, local distinguished visitors began calling on him, and he received them warmly, discussing Krishna conscious hour after hour in his room. In the evenings, he would lecture there and hold a kirtan. Prabhupada had a problem to face in Vrindavan. Guru Das had informed him that Mr. S wanted to take back 50 feet of the donated land, claiming the construction was not going quickly enough and that he had never intended to give the front portion. He was thinking of using it for shops, maybe even a petrol pump. Prabhupada was alarmed. For Mr. S to take back the front part of the property would ruin the temple scheme and make a farce of the gift. What good was the land without proper access to it? On further inquiry, Prabhupada learned that Gurudas had not yet received the actual deed. Prabhupada was greatly disturbed, yet he proceeded calmly and intently. Gurudas, he said, should immediately secure the deed from the registrar and construct a high brick wall around the property. Prabhupada's secretary wired Mr. S, who was away from Vrindavan. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada now in Vrindavan until the 13th. Now settle up front piece as promised. Mr. S wired his reply. Front part of land will be used for other purposes as decided earlier. Letter follows. Suddenly it seemed that Prabhupada had another Bombay case on his hands. Mr. S's action, however, confirmed Prabhupada's urgency for completing the construction. Had the land been already walled and the temple built, there would have been no question of Mr. S's taking the land back. Prabhupada's followers could now see clearly his reasons for pushing them. He had been vigilant, even heavy and critical, but for good reasons. Maya's opposition to Krishna consciousness was always present, so that if the devotees let up for even a moment, they could suffer great losses. The question, why hurry? Why be so anxious to build a temple right away? Should never have been asked. It was the question of the naive, the lazy. As long as the Krishna consciousness movement had no temple in Vrindavan, the threat would exist that there might never be a temple. Prabhupada wrote to a friend in Calcutta. This statement of K has given me much concern. He said personally to me that under dictation of Srimati Radharani, he has given the land to us in charity. We have invested already lakhs of rupees for constructing a temple, and now if he uses the front portion for other purposes, there will be great damage to the view of the temple. Kindly see Mr. N. S, brother of K, and settle this up so we can go on in our progressive construction work. Kindly treat this as very urgent. In Mr. S's absence from Vrindavan, Prabhupada took the opportunity to speak with Mr. S's brothers as well as Mr. S's lawyers. What had been given in the name of Srimati Radharani, he informed them, could not be taken back. Mr. S's associates agreed, at least for the moment, that Mr. S had no substantial position. Meanwhile, the laborers were working quickly to build a 12-foot high wall around the property. It was 4 a.m. Prabhupada sat in cold darkness with a small desk lamp shining before him. Having risen from bed at 2 and come into his main room to dictate Srimad Bhagavatam purports, he now sat silently. He wore a wool knit hat pulled over his ears, a sweater, and a grey wool chadar around his shoulders. On the other side of the double doors sat his servant, peeking in to see what his spiritual master was doing. On Prabhupada's last visit to the United States, he had acquired a new secretary servant, Satsvarupa Das Goswami. Despite the cold, Prabhupada's new assistant was happy to be in Vrindavan and so intimately situated close to his spiritual master. Prabhupada rang his bell. The servant jumped up, opened the double doors, and entered the room. In the far corner of the large room, seated at the desk, he saw Srila Prabhupada looking grave and mystical, his beautifully intense eyes sparkling. As Satsvarupa offered obeisances, he thought of his great fortune in being there with his spiritual master. When he sat up, he saw Prabhupada nod slightly, and he felt that Prabhupada was acknowledging his servant's good fortune. Hare Krishna. Next. Okay, I will pause here. I can take any reflections. Anybody has any thoughts, comments? So we see the urgency why Prabhupada is trying to build all these temples. Of course, he himself knows that he has very limited time on this mortal planet, and so he wants to make sure that he is building these temples so that the future vision that he had, that his disciples, his devotees of this beautiful society that he had established would come from all around the world to their spiritual home, to the center of the spiritual world, as he used to call Vrindavan, Shashi Radha Damodar Mandir. So he wanted to construct these temples so that the devotees can worship the deities. Because as he was saying yesterday also and many times, these temples and these deities are not just marble statues. Right? This is the form of Lord. The Lord has accepted kindly and mercifully this form so that we can worship him. We can serve him 24 hours a day. Because we are not like Haridas Thakur who can just sit and chant for 24 hours. Of course, in the Kali Yuga, Hari Nam Kalautad Hari Kirtanat, that is the described and prescribed process for self-realization. But because the people or the devotees or the practicing devotees are not so advanced that we can just sit and chant whole day, we need all these varieties of devotional services. So Prabhupada gave us everything, right? From chanting and hearing, reading the books, all the wonderful literature, all the wonderful temples, deity worship, so that we can serve in the temple, we can serve the people around us through all these wonderful practices of bhakti. So that was his vision, and he wanted to fulfill that vision as quickly as possible. Um, so that was the mood, and that was the speed why he was operating at that pace that he was operating at. And yeah, Vrindavan, of course, we saw Vrindavan, and Prabhupada now wants to build this temple, just like he didn't want to have history repeat from Bombay, where they had suffered so much of problems and weight. So he wanted to get this thing, get this Vrindavan project constructed as soon as possible. And Satsvarupa Das Goswami, who's now the secretary, he's the author of this wonderful um, biography of Srila Prabhupada that we are reading, Prabhupada Lilamrit. So he's considering it his good fortune that he was here with his spiritual master, and seeing him waking up in the morning at 2 a.m. Sometimes we saw again, and Prabhupada is in America and all. Yeah, this was his kind of his schedule. He would sleep at 10, he would wake up at 1, and then he will be starting dictating these wonderful purports of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is how he toiled day and night, and he gave all this wonderful treasure for us to relish. It's just that we need to develop the taste to relish them. So when we come together and we read, and this pleases Srila Prabhupada, this pleases all our Guru Parampara, that we are taking the time to read the scriptures that they have given us. Okay, anybody else would like to share anything else that touched your heart from today's reading? Why Krishna, why Prabhupada wanted to build Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan. Yes. Anandini Gopika Mataji, anything from your side?
Hare Krishna, no Prabhu, but just interesting to know that so much of history behind all these temples that we have now, that we just go in and have a blissful time there, and so much of hard work. Also, I was just contemplating that we have been debating back and forth to build our temples, but build a temple for us. But Prabhupada, as a visionary, gave these temples to sort of neophytes at that time, but he had empowered these devotees to come up to that level. So, in one way, maybe we cannot compare with that time when Prabhupada was there. It's just that thought ran into my mind, and the better option would be to just wait and develop our congregation before we think of it. I don't know. You can share your thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately, it's all by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Parampara. The temple is already there, as Prabhupada says. Guru Maharaj is also saying the same thing. Of course, I think when we went to Sadhu Sangha, Radhanath Maharaj also said to wait right now. So when they say, that is as good as Prabhupada saying us. So Chandamoli Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj, they have told us to wait. So like you said, I think right now our focus should be, and yeah, a center. It's not like we need to really have a lavish temple. I mean, we have a center, flourishing center. We are performing all the practices of devotional services there. So it is not different from a temple in that aspect, and we have been doing that for years now. Also, there's always a reason, right? I mean, there could be many reasons why. I mean, right now we have a big temple coming up in Columbus, which is very close to us, right? So while that is happening, maybe right now the focus and energy has to be there, right? So that making sure that comes up very nicely, and then hopefully Cincinnati will be next. So
I
yeah.
agree. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else would like to share anything? Nalin Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Pragyan Mataji
Very
also
good, Prabhu.
sleep. Good. All right.
Just talking on mute.
Okay. All right, then we'll pause here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pragyan Mataji, for joining. We'll end with Vaishnava Pranam prayers. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavindi ki jai. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
I take it.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.